Hi, everyone. Thanks for joining us. We are in for such a treat with Teresa Kirk. I don't know if any of you have been to her website, but I encourage you to go and look at her work. She's done fabulous floral and still life and figurative pieces, and you'll learn a lot. Teresa is absolutely an award-winning artist, and she has many vegetable soup letters after her name. She's been with Artists Changing Tomorrow, Florida Watercolor, Kansas Watercolor, and Southern Watercolor Societies. So, and plus she's a platinum signature member of the Gold Coast Watercolor Society. So she is currently teaching at the Boca Raton Museum Art School, where she shares her love of water media. And we are very, very fortunate to have her. I asked her before we started this what she was most proud of, and she said that she could do Zoom. So, so we're very lucky to have her. And Teresa, thank you very much for joining us.
Well, thank you for inviting me. So,
I'm sorry, Teresa, this is Vicki. Just one more thing. We're going to ask everyone to stay muted unless you have a question. Then Teresa is welcome or has welcomed everyone to ask questions unless it gets crazy. Anyway, go ahead, take it away.
Okay, thank you for inviting me into your home. This is my studio. It's kind of a mess, but it it allows us. You're in California and here I am in Florida and we're doing this. So I want to talk to you about my process and the surface that I love to paint on, and that's the aquabord. I'm going to switch you over to my other thing so you can kind of see. Okay, we have the aquabord. One of the things that you have to do when you start is you need to wet it first. Just because it is a clay product, it has a lot of little air bubbles in it. So I just, will wet that down. I started with this process. I'm sure many of you have had where you look at the white of the paper and it's kind of scary. So I started noticing that I was painting on old paintings and I thought, well, shouldn't I do something that I could go ahead and make it not precious? So this process came about for that. Now, I like the aquabord, first of all, because it absorbs like 300-pound paper. And I don't know about you guys, but 300-pound paper is a little rich for my blood. But I can take and do a full sheet of 300-pound paper, runs you about $20 a sheet. And with the aquabord in a 2-inch cradle board, when Cheap Joe's had them on sale, I could get it for $70. So you could frame it without a lot of expense, because we know when we put our paper under the mat and the glazing, it costs you about, if it's a full sheet, about $200 yourself if you do it yourself. So I kind of went to this product. The other nice thing is you can take, once you put a finish on it, this is watercolor, but I can do this to it and it doesn't destroy what you've done. So, and it brings it out from underneath the plexi, which everybody seems to think that if you're under glass, it's not of the same value. So I'm not a big planner. I mean, today, it could be a winner or it could be a dud, because I just kind of go, wherever. I just kind of react to what's happening on the paper. And I know somebody will ask, where do you get your ideas? Now, I spend a lot of time drawing. And so I never bring these into my studio, but these are things that allows me to think about space division. I try different things with the Sumi ink. So, you can play ideas. And the big thing is, you don't have to show anybody this stuff. You can just come in here and play. I've worked with some birds and and stuff like that. So this is your playground, and I never bring it into the studio with me. But this all comes out through my hands. My imagery is there. And this is what helps you become more of an intuitive painter by doing some of this. So I always start my stuff, like I said, I started this process because I didn't want this to be precious. Also, I wanted to tell you about the aquabord. It's unique surface that you can control the color, and you can get a lot of luminous light glazes going on. I don't know how many of you, I have a hard time glazing on watercolor paper. You have, switch it back over so you can see me. You can have endless glazing, and you can lift back to the white of the paper without destroying the surface. It can be sealed without glass, and it's great for gouache, acrylic, and inks. Now, I used to get the gesso board for my acrylics, but I decided, we buy so much stuff that we don't necessarily need. Aquaboard takes the acrylic, so I can do everything on this that I can on paper and on, the gesso board. So I've cut it down to just one product. I love the aquaboard for that. And it's archival. It's got a rigid surface. You can see here, it's a board. So it's a board. It's pretty sturdy. So the way I start was I'll wet it down and let all the air bubbles get out. And then I use this Art Graphic. It's a water-soluble pencil. Lacaria makes, water-soluble thing. You have Derwent, they make water-soluble stuff. But I love the chunkiness of this. And what I love about it is also erasable. I can take it away because part of my work is decollaging. Then I use the Sumi ink, and it can be erased, no matter how long it's down. Some of the other inks, like your Holbein has ink, a bunch of them have ink. Those become permanent. Once it dries, you can't remove it. So how I start, like I said, I don't want the paper to be precious. So I start out, and I may stick my pencil into water, but I just kind of write. It doesn't matter what it does. I don't care at this point because this is just an underpainting. And then I might see how that will erase. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask, because remember, if you're thinking it, somebody else is thinking it. So then I come in, and I love the Sumi ink. And but you see how you've automatically got an energy to your work without any work. You now have it saying something. So that would be the first stage. And I usually let that dry. Then I come in, and usually what I do is I'll prepare several of these little things here. And I'm working smaller than I normally do. This one's smaller than a 12 by 16. I typically like 16, the 16 by 20 is usually the smallest that I like, because I like the freedom of having more area to work in. But you can get it up to a full sheet size. I do work a lot of full sheet size too. So I just come in, and I'll throw out some pigment. And at this point, I don't have any idea of what it's going to be. I just prep I just get some paint down. You want it to be, because like I said, it's like working on 300-pound paper. So you need rich pigment. And I don't worry what I put down, because I'm going to tell it what it's going to be when it grows up. This is where you get to play God. Sometimes,
Teresa?
yes. Yes.
So I have a
Oh.
question. How wet is the board at this point?
The board is dry
How-
because I've done the mark making.
How wet is the board? Okay.
The board isn't wet because it's dry. I typically work wet on dry. The second time you go in, it is wet on wet then. But it's just, the first thing is when I go to put down the marks, it doesn't matter if it's a little bit wet.
Thank you.
So, but the big thing is I work a very limited palette, as you'll begin to see. So that would be the next stage. Oh, the other thing that I like to do sometimes is I'll come in during this stage with my watercolor pencils or the Inktense pencils, and I'll sand some of this into the wet areas. So you get some texture happening, which I'll hold up closer to my thing so that you can see some of that. But that just gives you texture. And if you haven't figured out yet, I love the unexpected. So can you see where, like up and through there, you're getting a little texture where this has gone into where it's wet? So that's just from your watercolor pencils or the Inktense pencils.
Yes.
So then I put that aside to dry.
Teresa, this is Susan.
Hi.
Question. You use the Sumi ink. Is that different than India ink? And is there a reason to use one or the other?
India ink, once it dries, it cannot be removed. I
Okay.
can come in, which I can show you right now just so that you get an idea, is with the Sumi ink, I can come in with my stencil and I want you to, you don't want a lot of water in it. You get your natural sponge, get the excess water off. I can lift the
Oh,
Sumi ink.
cool.
You can't do that with the others because I mean, and Holbein is the same thing. Of course, your acrylic inks, once they dry, they're dry. But what I like, the whole process is I'll put down stuff, I'll take away. I'll put down stuff and I'll take away. So that's why I like the Sumi ink. It's removable.
Thank you.
And I typically start with the black, the graphite, and the ink. You could start with colored pencils or colored crayons or whatever. But I just find when you start with the color, for me, it becomes confusing because now you've already introduced color and you have to worry about what is going on at that point. So I now go to gouache. Now there are several different little sets. The Holbein gouache, which is a set, it works on the Mucinel thing, but it's got your primary magenta, yellow, and cyan, white, and black. You can mix every color that you need with this. Now, I do own every color Holbein has in the gouache, but I find I work with this most of the time because I can come back to a piece several years later and know I can still mix colors because I know what I've used. Da Vinci makes a set of gouache. They have a set and it works on the same sort of thing, but their blue, I believe, is a phthalo. It doesn't say it's a phthalo, but it's pretty, it takes over like phthalo has a tendency to do. Oh, it does say phthalo blue. So, and I'm not a big fan of phthalo blue, but I have used this. I do find that I only need the three colors, the red, yellow, and blue, and the white and black. Winsor Newton makes a set, but they include the green, And I don't, even on my regular watercolor palette, I don't use green. I mix my greens. So I got to where when I use the Winsor Newton, because you're not in the local stores, you're not always able to get the Holbein that I really like. You can buy just the tubes of the primary magenta, and they do the same thing. It's primary red, yellow, and blue with the white and the black. So you can get, a set for around $30 to $50, depending on the brand of paint that you get. I used to buy all my stuff from Cheap Joe's, but they've kind of gone by the wayside, so I'll have to be looking for that. The other thing is I did clean this up a little bit for you. I usually leave all my paint out there because if you have good quality gouache, you can get in there and keep adding to it, but I'm going to add some out. And I just work on a butcher palette. This is the magenta. And right today I've grabbed the Winsor Newton. I didn't realize that, but like I said, I use both, so. But you don't have to buy, you could actually add white to your transparent colors and make gouache. If you do decide that you like the look of gouache, I recommend you getting one of these little sets, because the way watercolor works is the light shines through to the paper and then bounces off the paper. And with gouache, it shines through and bounces off of the pigment and the way that it's ground. So it's worth investing in this little set so that you can mix up the colors that you want. Because of the look of it. But you can get away with it, to get it started out. Don't waste your money on, there's the Marie's out there, and there's some of these, odd names. I think it's because the minute if these dry up in the tube, I can cut the tube open and reconstitute it where, the Marie's and stuff, when it's dried up, it's gone. So I use the white, but because I go through so much white, and I'm very, very frugal, I use the PBO white gouache. This tube used to run 18 at Cheap Joe's. They really threw me off a couple weeks ago when they decided they were closing. But you can buy this tube of Winsor Newton for around 18. This was around 18. So it just happens to go further. This has more covering power. The Winsor Newton has more covering power, but sometimes you don't need all that much covering power. So I use both. Stick it over here. Okay. So when you're working with gouache, and I've also got to put my towel on. So I come in and I don't worry about what colors I'm going to choose. I just start coming in and start trying to work with I usually use a flat brush, especially when I'm demoing. So, but I just mix a little bit of water. You want it kind of creamy. So I might come in and I just start etching out my image that I'm thinking of. And like I said, I'm not a big planner. So I just come in, because if I don't like the color, I can change it. And this will probably be a flower because it's something that I can put down quickly. And if I don't get it right, you guys don't notice it. So, because I'm not photorealistic. But I'm always thinking of ways, and I don't know if I can get this close enough. I just barely touch the water when I go to bring water in. Now you could take a little spray bottle and spray in to help control some of the water. When I'm trying to get a straight edge, this little thing that you get at Home Depot makes a great edger for you. So if I want a straight edge, because I'm a lazy painter, I don't necessarily tape off, which is another good way to get straight edges. So I'm just coming in and I'm thinking, and I'm trying to think of putting things together. I always think about Alex Katz on how he, I got a little bit too much red there than I want. But I just need to change it up just a little bit as I go across here. But Alex Katz was very good at activating the space by going along and having these nibbly little edges. The thing that I hate about Zoom, I can't tell if you guys are still out there. So if you have any questions, feel free to ask.
We're here. We're still watching.
Here.
So
And the blue is gorgeous so far. So
yeah, I had a little bit of, it got warmer. The value stays the same, but it got a little bit warmer as it goes across because, you know, you need to change things up, you know, every so often.
the person you just mentioned, Alex Kapp, how do you spell the last name?
Katz. You know him. In fact, I think he was part of the Bay Harbor figurative artist, or he was out there. He did the figures that I think of the lady with the sunglasses, and she had on this big hat, but there was this little nibbled edge out of it to activate the space. I'm a big one on, I really recommend that you study the different artists, and a lot of the artists that I love was part of the Bay figurative artists. You have Diebenkorn, you have Bischoff, you got Wayne Thibault.
We
I
just saw
love-
his exhibit up at
Oh.
our De Young Museum.
Oh,
T-Bone, yeah.
oh, what that guy could do with the landscapes of San Francisco just blows me away. But see how you're starting? I don't know if you see it, because sometimes I see it way before everybody else does. But you're starting to get the filling of a bunch of tulips together. And I
Yeah.
made, yeah, you really need to study all these artists, and they all, you know, like Thibault and Diebenkorn and David Parks, all of them, you know, hung together, and they were all from your area. So
Yeah, his the Deben or Thibault, his San Francisco ones, they had a fair amount of those on exhibit and they were unbelievable.
oh yeah. Now, one of the things like I like to do right now is, because we're all so afraid of black right off the bat. So a lot of times I'll come in with some black, and I can do it because I've got the black underneath, and I kind of do it as shock value. So hopefully I won't be shocked and find out it didn't work today, but but I can come in here and of course I got it a little too wet, so I'm going to have to do another layer over it. But you know, it's okay if you get too much water, you can let it dry and you'll be able to put another layer over the top of it. And I think I will go ahead and go on, across, and out. But, you know, the big thing that, you know, I know a lot of people, I don't know how many of you guys are planners or something like that. I was never a good planner, because when I first started painting, I'd have my image and I'd lose it before. I got done with my painting. So then I had to make it up. And I'm going to, now as we come across, I've gone into this black space. I'm going to go try to change the scale of my tulips as I come across here, make them bigger. And I'm looking at this, I probably should have went with like a poppy or something, because that could be a poppy or a black-eyed Susan or, you know, whatever. And maybe we'll take and go with that. So see how you just have to be prepared to what the paper tells you to do? Because tulips and black-eyed Susans or probably has a feeling of more of a black-eyed Susan. Or I'm from Kansas originally. We had wild sunflowers. It could be a wild sunflower.
Teresa, would you also describe this as doing some negative painting?
This is exactly what it is. I'm negative painting. Now, you can always draw if you need to. I don't draw because when I was in kindergarten, my kindergarten teacher said I couldn't go outside the lines. And to this day, I don't go outside the lines. If I have a drawing, I stay right inside of that line. So, and I've done plein air painting. I'll put down a little bit of information, but if I have too much information, I stay there. I have friends that do value studies, do color studies. I don't do that. But you see how I can switch from the black because of this going through the painting. You always have to have a friend in a painting. The black has a friend. And there is a lady, Carolyn von Heil, remember this quote: if you're going to use black, use it like you would if you bought a dagger to a rumble. So be bold and don't be afraid. Now, sometimes I come in here and I might do that. So it starts getting, I don't know if you can see, I scratch in a little bit just so that what's underneath
Yeah.
can work. And I really like that I switched from one type of flower to another type of flower. But hopefully you can see, look at how the little nibbly edges going in there. Painting is about relationships. And by having these nibbly edges, I'm building a relationship with the outside. The most famous negative space in the world is the Sistine Chapel, and that is the hand of God and the hand of Adam, that little space right between where he's given him life. So, and I love negative space. I think in negative space better than I think in the positive space. So now I'm going to go ahead and bring some more black over to this side. But you see, I don't ever have a plan. I'm just coming in and I'm just working with it. The way I look at it, it's only a board, it's only a piece of paper, and I get to decide what it's going to be. And when you start being afraid, when I first started painting, I had a instructor that said, if you like something, then you need to cover it up. And I thought, oh my God, how can you do that? But it really does make a difference. You just get out there. The worst that can happen, I told you, I can take this to the sink if it doesn't work out and I can wash it off. So it's kind of like an Etch-a-Sketch. And I have used it with my grandchildren. I've given them these, and then they make these wonderful pieces of artwork, and then they go home, and the next time they come, they get the same board back, but it's been cleaned off. So, but they don't know that you haven't kept it for them.
That's a great idea.
Yeah. So I love the aqua board.
Really cool.
So you can just tell that you just kind of, you go through this stuff and you don't worry about it. The other thing is, I'm trying not to match all the lines up, because from all the years of us doing paint by number, our brains automatically will put the lines together. Now, one of the things that I recommend that you do is that you take and you look at it. If I was working, myself, I might stop at this point, bring another piece out, and then move on, because that gives you a chance for your thought process to catch up with what's going on your paper here. But since it's a demo and we want to get as close to finished as we can, I'm going to keep going. But I love how the black just really sets things off. Now, I can come in if I want, but I do kind of like that. I may not, well, oh, I may come with something like this. Now, when you have something solid like this, I do have it, I don't know if you can see, it is a little fuzzy there, which is the change of edge quality. But when it's something that's that dark, sometimes you have to come in and break up the edge quality even a little bit more. So I may come in on one side.
Teresa, do you work on multiple pieces at the same time?
Yes, I do, because I paint too fast. And I don't give, and I've learned, I read a book by Brian Ruschenberg, and one of the things that he says is you get to 98% done, and then you spend some time with the painting. So now I get to a point when I think I'm close to being done, I actually will stop and paint and look at it for a week. I can't touch it for a week, and then I'll make notes during the week. And by the time the week is up, it's amazing what will, you'll decide what was your first thing was not necessarily the way to go. Now, looking at this already, I can tell I don't like that little line there, even though it connects with that. But since I put the black in, so I'm going to break up that line. But see, this gives me a chance to think about that stuff. So I've changed the edge quality. So I've come out, it's still there, but the edge quality has changed. So now it's not so distracting. So those are just kind of some of the things that we take and work with. So now I'm going to come up into here. Now, the other thing is to be aware of is I'm learning that sometimes the abstraction with, where you might spell out some, I work in a grid format where you might, spell out some of the stuff, but I've learned to, this could, like up in here, if I do it right, it could look like the flower exploding, before it actually dies. So those are some of the things that you can work with. So I'm thinking I'm going to come in and I'm going to go even lighter, maybe a little bit grayer. So but I always kind of work from the same puddles. That's why I said I clean this up, but a lot of times I keep the same stuff, I'll keep it out here because I can get the grays that I like. So I think we'll go with more of a gray. And how do I want to do this? But you can see how working in your sketchbook allows you to come up with some of these images. I mean, you get the gestural quality. If I was to describe my work, it is kind of, and I'm going to straighten this off because I don't think I want to go up that high. I'm just going to kind of wipe with a damp paper towel there to get that straight edge. By playing with some of the thing, I give you the gestural quality of some flowers, but it doesn't necessarily describe what the flower is. So like I said, mine is more gestural in nature. Get some more, but you gray things down. Need it just a little bit bluer. but I changed up the color and the temperature in my gray here. And I can see as I'm getting around this, that the black in this spot is a little bit too heavy too. So it's probably, some of that is going to go away. In fact, I think I'm going to come in. Now, when I get stencils, I try to get, you know, I work with squares or circles, but I try to make sure that they're varied in a lot of ways. Instead of being, I don't like everything being the same. And I've lost my sponge. Oh, there it is. So I'm going to come in here. And I'm just bringing it. Now, typically I'd let this dry, but I'm going to come back over because I don't know if you can see. You can see this is more transparent, and the problem gets to be is when it's transparent like this, then it competes with what's happening in the center. But I love how I've changed the edge quality from here to here. And I may, as I look at it, just let it fall down into there. So we're going to come down into here because I need that to dry a little bit more. So I think I'll bring us another one of these little flowers over there.
Is that black really Sumi ink?
The black here is Sumi ink. This is the black washed. This is Sumi ink. That's Sumi ink. All of this is Sumi ink.
Okay.
Because remember,
I can't remember stuff.
I know. Remember when I did the first thing, I had stage one. This is Sumi ink and water-soluble graphite. Then I came in with
I
water.
just saw how you erased, you got the white back.
That's what is so wonderful about the aquabord. It really comes up easily. Now, you can do this on paper. Hold on, let me see if I can get.
I call that Trump style, save the whites. Do I get any laughs or should I keep my mouth shut?
No, you got some laughs.
I'm sad.
But let's leave the political commentary for something else, please.
So, anyway, now I forgot what I was going to tell you. Oh, these are on paper. You can push back paper. You can lift, but it's easier on the aquabord. See here, you have the aquabord. I've lifted some. I've pushed back some. This. I don't have much of the black still showing on that, but here you can see I've got the black, and I've actually ghosted that right over there.
Right.
So, it's just playing with some of this stuff. So, now I got to go back to the other camera. Okay, so I'm thinking if I come in a box in this sort of square, and we're going to try to go with, and I lost the brush that I was using. I spend a lot of time hunting for my materials here. So go back to this little puddle of stuff. And oil painters, I think, do this. They work from the same puddles, and they just keep adding and they push back and forth. And that's the big thing, is you can get very neutralized gray and you can push it warm to cool. When you get mud, it's because you're neither warm nor cool. And there is some beauty in mud too. Mud is underrated. So now when you work the the simple ones, the yellow and the blue is so bright that you end up with some pretty bright greens. Everyone says, how can you live in Florida and not like green? But you can get some pretty bright greens. So I'm just going to come in here. Now the value is too close to the same of that, so I want to push it. I'm going to push it lighter, I think. And I think I'm going to make it more of a green, but it's a grayed down green. It's not a bright green. Yeah, I think I like that better. And I always like things going off the page. One thing that I hope everybody has like a swipe file where you pull out pictures of paintings that you love, because it will tell you the stuff that you are drawn towards. Like, I know I love like Rick Barteau because of his mark making process. Same with Basquiat. Now, I don't like that necessarily. I don't think that's a good shape, so I'm just going to come in and wipe that out, but it'll leave behind a little bit there. But I'm always about, having these little nibbly edges that come in and it comes off the paper. I like things up close and personal. If I'm out, I used to go to Vermont before I got my kids, plein air painting, and I would paint a tree up close or a street sign, and everybody else was getting the vistas. I'm not a big vista person. So you need to know what you love. And I'm going to come in here. Now, sometimes at this point, I can come in with my pencil and do another swab over it. So what you're doing is you've got it underneath, you're bringing on top, you're putting on top, and then you're adding on top. So we want layers of this stuff going on. I'm going to come back up to here now and work with some of that. And I'm actually going to change the shape. When I put another layer of color over the top, I always leave behind some of what's down underneath there, even if it's a color you don't like. I look at it this way. We live, I love looking at people's faces and seeing their life etched upon it. Well, I like it in my paintings too. I want to know their history. I want to know if, how many colors or stuff is up under there. So, but you see, I'm trying to get it a little bit more opaque. And I'll pull it up close so that you can see it. That's the downside to Zoom, is you don't really get to see all the nuances of color that is there. Because we never know what everybody's, I know I never calibrate my laptops and stuff, so Any questions now?
Teresa, this is Christine. How do you make your selections of where you're going to place your flowers and do your negative painting?
A lot of it comes from having worked in my sketchbook, and I always play the old what if game, because if I don't like it, and I can show you, I'll show you here in a minute where I can lift some stuff. Nothing is permanent. I can change it. Now see how I've got more layers starting to come out there? I'll
Yeah.
probably need to put some color across that. I have a tendency to work from the center out and then trying to work with it. But what's nice is like in here, if I decide I want this to come back down here, I can put some water over it. And let
Oh,
that come
yeah.
on down here. So I can lift anything that I don't like. I can tell
Mhm.
here I've got to go darker because I can't, there's nuance there, but it's not enough that I can look at it and go, I go there, but I don't know why you want me there. Here, I
Yeah.
know why you want me here. So that I'm
Mhm.
going to have to work with. So we're going to go back to our little puddle there. Now, typically, we would let this dry some. We'll put just a little bit of black just to gray it some. I'm going to go over that. But I play this what if game. So hopefully, the worst that can happen is I go, oh no, and I wash the whole thing off. But, it's just,
I can see how that's a huge advantage with the aquabord.
oh yeah, you can do it on paper, but you're really limited to how many times you could do it. And
Yeah.
sometimes I did a lot of layers of wash down, and, you don't want it to crack on you. It does have chalk in it. So
Mhm.
I need a little bit of water. But yeah, the aquaboard is just an amazing surface. And like I said, if you work in acrylic, just use the aquaboard. It's for both. Now see, it's starting to lift up because it's a little bit wet under there. So I'm going to have to just go once because it's mixing, but that's okay. I just want to get some color down. Now, this is when I might come in. I love these little Stabilos, which is a child's crayon, I think. I might come in with some of that. So that adds a little bit of something else to it. I think I'm going to come back up with black. Kind of use, Matisse was notorious for putting black around 3 or 4 sides of a painting to get you to wander through his painting. So I may come in with some of that. And like I said, Carolyn von Heil says, if you're going to use black, use it like you would if you were bringing a knife to a rumble. You better be prepared to use it. But see, by having this black, it speaks to what's happening in here. Now, one of the things that I always have to watch out for is because I love pattern, I can get carried away with pattern and stuff like that. So a lot of times at the end, when I'm living with the painting, I'm having to figure out how to hold it down. Now, one of the things is I look up. Now, what's nice doing it with Zoom, I can look at my painting and up there. I love how that is around this. I may leave all of that open because I kind of like the look of that. So you always have to look at your paintings from different different ways, different, you can go into the bathroom, look at it in a mirror. And in my bathroom, I have a mirror that has one mirror across the other. I can see my image like 10 or 15 different steps going back, so I can view it from differently. But I love the weight of this to this. I kind of like this left open. I may come in here and break that up a little bit because it swoops too much that way. But you have to stand back. You got to take your time, look at things differently. In fact, I think right now I am going to go break up some of this. But is everybody kind of liking how that little piece there has made this start to make sense?
Yeah, it looks great.
So the biggest thing, I teach at the Boca Museum, and the biggest thing that I see is people never get back away from their work. This is why working several pieces at one time, it lets your brain and your paint, you got to let paint do what paint's going to do. So, and when you're working on it nonstop, I don't know how long we've been working on this, it's hard to let, the painting catch up to me. See how that broke that up? It changed the edge quality.
Is that a piece of screen that you're using?
This is actually what they use to make confetti or sparkle things. It's the ribbon.
Oh, okay.
So you used to be able to buy it. I don't know where you can get it now. I haven't seen it in a while.
It's a
But
great texture.
oh yeah. And I like the circles. I go and our art guild had said we couldn't use stencils. So I got around that. I went and bought a stencil maker, a stencil cutter, and those are some of the stencils I cut. But I like a lot of circles. If I use squares or anything like that, I want them to be irregular. I don't want them to look manipulated. And that's, the big thing that you have to think about. Now, hang on. I'm going to just I think we need to take a look at this, and I didn't lay this out.
Teresa,
always
out of
have
curiosity, why
Huh?
did your group say no stencils?
They were trying to get us back to, this is Florida watercolor, and they were trying to get us back to being traditional watercolorists, and we're not. We're a water media group, and it was just with any group they come up with things that they do. And I was the past president of Florida Watercolor, so they get tired of hearing me. There's nothing worse than an old president either. But see how getting where I can confine it, it gives me a little bit of things that I see happening. I love that this is open here. I need to work on this here. I need to probably define this more. I like this being open, and I like this. So I think I'm going to come down in this area, and I can, at this point, come back with my watercolor. And you have that kind of a thing like that. And then I think I'll come in with my ink pen. But can you see how putting the mat around it, it helps me edit it better, because even though this white thing just kind of keeps you from moving out further. But I'm going to give some texture up in that. And so I think I'll come. Come back in with our. So by going in while it's kind of wet, it gives a little bit more texture to it. I do think I want a little bit of the black. And I'll just hit it. So, and I love what Sumi Ink does, how it just kind of spreads. So I'm going to come in and change this up. I don't like this line coming down here, but that was more to show you that I could erase something. And that's what's wonderful. I don't have to worry about what I do because I can show you things and I can I can backpedal on it. How are we doing on time?
You've been at this for about an hour.
Oh,
We have plenty of time.
huh?
There's plenty of time.
I might have to go to another piece. Just,
Teresa, this is Christine. You have a wonderful compliment in the chat. Michelle said she took a class from you at Cheap Joe's, North Carolina, and she said it was super wonderful.
well, it's cool. I'm glad you made it. So you must have gotten my emails about the demo, because and I'm so sad that Cheap Joe's is going away. So, but the big thing is, don't ever be afraid to do anything. Get out there and go for it. And it's nice to find these other groups, because until you guys contacted me, I knew about the group that's out of San Diego Watercolor. But I didn't really know about Santa Clara group. And see, I cut in. So hopefully you've been painting a lot. And everybody, I was asked how you come up with the stuff. I can tell you, to become an intuitive painter, it's painting or drawing every day. And then you have to realize some of the stuff is gonna be really great. Some of the stuff is gonna be dogs. That's just the scheme of things. But I was reading the other day where they said Picasso, he produced so much stuff every day. When you look at his body of work, he only has probably about 100 pieces of any value. So why do we expect us to do better than Picasso? Have you ever thought about, if he couldn't pull it off, he was a little bit arrogant, but and I think arrogance comes with part of it, is if we believe in ourselves. That's the other thing. Believe in yourself and just go for it. Because, and I haven't given this, those that have taken from me before have heard my lecture on, when they go to put dirt in our face, everything you've painted over the years will end up in 3 piles. The first pile is for your family, and they already have what they want. The second pile is for goodwill, and that's the paintings that are in nice frames that some artist is going to come in and take your work out of and put theirs in. And then the last one is, it's going to just go in the trash. Or in my case, they're going to build a box for me and put me out on the lake. So, just just have fun. It's about the journey. And those are my words of wisdom for you. Because
Well,
Well,
Teresa and Susan, well, that's all good to know because I was wondering about what I was going to do with them all.
well, have enough matte medium so at the end they can put it together and build your box and save you there. So
Paper mache, awesome.
so
Love that.
I'm going to talk about what I like and what I don't like, and hopefully, I mean, see how I'm getting more nuances in through there. I love I need that white is a little too stark there. I love this across here. I don't think I want to touch any of that. And I like this up here. I may come in. Now, the big thing is when you start using these stencils, it's like using salts. You got to be careful you don't get too crazy. But I do think I need to get rid of, where I break up some of that edge quality there. So that's kind of subtle. Now I'm feeling like I need a black down here. And let me see if I can find it real quick. This is the other good thing. I can go in my studio and hopefully find what I want. See, that may be all that I need for this painting, is put some black there.
I love the way the black makes my eye move around this painting.
That was an old Matisse trick. He used to put black rectangles, because remember, a lot of his stuff floated.
Yeah.
So he would put 3 or 4 black rectangles around the edges to get you to move. And you have to pay attention to how you go through. Yep, I think I'm going to have to start on something else because
That's lovely.
I think this one, I'm going to put the black down there, but I just want you to see it with the matte on it.
So how do you frame these, Teresa?
Okay, I use floater frames. Let me switch here. I do like, we'll come back to this in a minute because it's always good to see it from a distance. But I do think this black has to come in here, and I've got it not up high enough. But I think this is pretty close to being done. This is where I'd sit, as Brian Muschenberg would say, you sit and you look at it. And I have a white plastic thing, which I'll show you, that I have set in front of my TV. So when I'm cooking or I'm watching TV, I can look at it. And then when I'm pretty sure it's done, then I'll place it on easels in different parts of my house around my other paintings, because my other paintings will tell me what it needs. So let me switch it and I'll show you about the framing. Okay, this is a floater frame, and this one's actually put out by Ampersand. It's a nice frame. I like it, but I'm very frugal. So I like the cheap floater frame that you just slide in. I like floater frames. Oh, it's getting dark here. I don't know what happened. But this is just a cheapy floater type frame. So you could do that. You can do the metal frames where you slide them in.
The cheapy one, did you get that on Amazon or?
Well, that one, I may have got from IKEA. I don't, because I've gotten some from IKEA. I look on Amazon. I just kind of look around
Okay,
because and the aquaboard ones, the one by Amberson, they're nice frames, but I even find them difficult to put it. I have to get my husband to help me. Where these cheaper ones, they seem to fit in because they're kind of a plein air. Those who have done plein air painting, they're kind of a plein air thing. But I
Okay.
have done the metal one. I'll be right back. I'm getting the metal one here.
And if you guys haven't looked at IKEA, they do have a lot of good frames there and lots of different sizes.
Here is a full sheet, and I just have a metal frame around it.
okay,
beautiful.
yeah. Wow,
So
very simple, yeah.
yeah, and like I said, I showed you where you could take and just drop it in, and you don't you spray it. That's the other thing. Is I use the polyacrylic. I don't know why it's getting so dark. It's still light out there. The polyacrylic by Minwax, and I spray it one coat one way, wait 30 minutes, spray it another coat, and wait 30 minutes, and then spray another coat. And I'll line these up. I'll do a bunch of them and line them up and do the polyacrylic, and that's what protects it. Now, I've worked in Boca long enough. I do like a gloss. I used to like only a matte finish. If you like a matte finish, you have to put 2 coats of gloss and then 1 coat of matte, because the matte puts a film over it to make it matte. So you only want 1 coat of the matte, and that comes on at the end. And those who have worked in acrylics know that's what you do when you're working, because matte just, clouds it out too much. So
So do you get that polyacrylic from like Home Depot or?
Home Depot, but I even saw when I was in Canuga, I was telling my class about it, and you can get it at Walmart. It came up on Walmart's thing. So
Oh,
it's just, and I used the sprays. I used to do the spray, and then I did because you can buy it where you brush it on. And that was kind of overkill. I don't think you need to do that. This, you saw what happened with that little piece that I showed you. You can also use the Dorland's cold wax. You can rub
Yeah.
that over the top of it.
That's nice.
There's
yeah.
just a lot of different things. And when you take the workshop, we'll talk about all that. But, the main thing is it's a surface that is so forgiving. And, we'll talk about formats. We'll talk about putting colors together. But as you can tell, I work even when I'm in my watercolors, they're very limited palettes. We get too crazy. I mean, I basically don't really need to buy all the paint that I do, but there's something about us artists that think if there's a new color out there, we got to own it. And I own every color of gouache from Holbein. Now, when it comes to paint, Holbein is my favorite of paints. If I can't have Holbein, I want Daniel Smith. You have to, I find Winsor Newton my least favorite. They've gone to where they've ground it differently. So there's just a lot of stuff that you have to do. I do need to put the black down in this one thing. And then we're going to go back to it just real quick. And you guys can, you can chime in, because I found that a lot of times dealing with, if I put the black in there, I think that just,
It balances it,
yeah,
yeah.
it balances, it's uneven, because it is very asymmetrical, kind of like my hair. Back in the days, I mean, these little things here, I used to have real spiky hair, so I think that's remembrance of my spiky hair. But, when I look at this, I think this is as far as I need to go. I mean, I could give you another thing there, but then I think it starts becoming, I found that I like the described to the undescribed best. And it's probably because I'm leaning more towards the abstraction. And this is a grid format. So let's put the black in real quick. But you can get black construction paper. The other thing that everybody needs to go get paint chips at the store, because you can never think of enough colors. I have paint samples and I go in, they're used to artists taking them, and I'll throw them down. Like if I wanted to say, is there another color I want? I can throw down colors that I would never think of. Oh, I was going to put, now I don't know. See, this is where I need to live with it. Because remember, I talked about describing this more. When I put this down, I'm not sure I need to. What's everybody's feelings on that?
Ask the question again. I'm sorry.
Remember when I was talking earlier, I said I thought I needed to describe this a little bit more over here.
Oh,
Maybe a
yeah.
little bit more color. But when I put this in, I don't think I do.
I don't think you do.
Yeah. And that's
No.
why you get to 98% done, and you have to, like I said, if I was painting, I would set it down. I try to get to 98%. Sometimes you've gone over that edge where you're 120 and you got to back it up. But if you can stop just a little bit short, then you can do this. And I don't allow myself to change anything. I have a little notepad right there by my chair, and I'll put down all the ideas that I have. And I find usually the first one is not what really it needs, but I need a week to first of all, paint changes for a solid week, even acrylic and watercolor. I swear it like changes, but it's got to catch up with you. You've got to have it get caught up to where you're at. I'm going to put the black in. And like I said, I'm just using the black wash. Now, if I wanted really, really opaque, I don't mind. If you get up close, you can tell I've got some stuff happening in there. I don't mind that. Some people like it completely flat. If I wanted it completely flat, I might come in with black gesso, because then you get a nice, good flat thing, or just really. Also, if you're working with gouache, if you spritz it down and you cover it with saran wrap, you can have it go for several days. It'll stay
That's
fresh.
interesting. Yeah.
I know people put it in those possum palettes. I don't know. That's too much work for me. I need where's my gouache? You typically don't put out much black because I don't use a lot of it. A tube of black paint will last me probably my lifetime, but I want that a little bit more solid.
Teresa, this is Christine. I'm fascinated by the fact that you left that kind of initial row of tulips pretty much untouched and less defined. How do you make yourself not niggle at that kind of stuff?
It's taken me a long time to get to that point. First of all, I love pattern, and then I always think you have to describe everything. I am not a photorealistic person. I have a friend that looks at my flowers and she goes, "You don't paint flowers. That's not flowers." And I'm like, "How can you say this is not flowers?" But it takes practice. But a lot of it is that sketchbook allows you to decide and to work with this stuff. But when I look at this, shape sells everything. Even though I changed the type of flower it is, and right here is where it starts to change. This looks more like a tulip, but because I put this out here, it looks like here is where it changed into these black-eyed Susans or whatever they'd be. But they just kind of dance along, and it doesn't matter where they change. Now, I could come in. Let me show you this. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to put this over the top of it. I could have come in, but I think you lose some of the and have described. See how just even coming in with that line, I've stopped the movement across. Can you see where I've taken this plastic and see, there it is there, but I think it's better that way.
Yeah, well, that's interesting, that one simple line. Yeah.
I mean, we have to, the best way to describe this is you don't want to tell the whole story. You want to, Brian Ruschenberg said in his book, Clear Scenes Place, he said that when you're in front of the painting, when the viewer is in front of the painting, you're having a conversation with the viewer. You don't want to tell him the whole story. I could tell you about Ralph, who lives across the street. He likes Mabel. She's got a glass eye and has a dog that has 3 legs. But really, Isabella down the road has the hots for Ralph. I've lost you. If I give you too much information, I've lost you. So don't tell me the whole thing. Let me come to the story with my own story.
Yeah,
And
good advice.
That's what you have to, a good storyteller doesn't tell you everything. And so, a lot of this you just have to go for it. Like I said, I think more in a grid. Whoops. I think more in a grid, which is what this is. I could do an S. I can set up any foundation that I want with this. And if you look, I got a lot of neutrals to some bright. So you want a lot of something to a little of something. So, it's all this stuff that just kind of comes in and starts playing and going for it. So I would, at this point, like I said, set it aside, look at it. This right here and this is just tiny, tiny little stuff, but I got to watch that I don't come in too soon trying to fix something, because then you lose some of the beauty. So, but painting that black square in there, it balanced the asymmetrical look of it. And you just kind of to go for it. So you have to learn to back off, let the painting catch up to how you're thinking and all that good stuff. So
It's stunning. It really is. It's beautiful.
this is one of those paintings that just painted itself. I mean, I'm talking through it. You can tell why I have to work a lot of, first of all, I tip the smallest, even when I do plein air painting, the smallest I work on is a half sheet, because there's just not enough real estate for me to work on. So, a lot of it is, in the workshop, if you decide to take, I don't know how many of you are taking the workshop, but if you decide to take it, it is going to be fairly fast paced. I'm going to be hitting you with foundations. I'm going to be hitting you with a lot of different information. And you have to get out of your comfort zone. When you take a workshop, and one of the things I hope that you realize, there's an energy that happened in this only because of that very first step. You get energy from that. Even though we push a lot of it back, the energy is still there. It's a passage of time that shows up. So, you just have to go for it. You get out of your comfort zone. And then a lot of it is just playing with it and going with it. And, and in copying and trying to do these different things, you'll find your own voice with your own work. Because I run the workshops here for Gold Coast. We have, so many of them, Ann Gabcott, Kiko Tanabe, Soon Warren. They all come in with the same image, but yet they all look different, because each one of you is an individual, and our individuality will come out through your own painting. So I'm not going to give you images. I want you to come in, because I do know if you come in with what you like to paint, it's much easier. I've learned, because I teach at a school, I had to learn to do still lifes. They're now one of my favorite things to do. I don't do a still life like everybody else does it, but I like doing a still life. You have to get out of your comfort zone. That's where your growth goes. If you keep doing the same thing over and over again, it's going to be very good, but you're not pushing yourself. And like I said, look at what Picasso did at the age of 12. He did the Communion at 12, and I'm sure his dad was very upset when he saw where he went by looking at African masks, where, what he took. I mean, because that guy, photorealism, that Communion at 12 was amazing. But most of us don't want to be that. When they say they want to see that the artist showed up to the page, I think this is the stuff that they want to see.
Yeah.
So,
Well, this is great. And if you really don't have more to go, we're fine with you stopping.
well, does anybody have any questions about the workshop or whatever? Because
Yeah.
let me tell you, I am seeing all over. Cheap Joe's went away. They did tons of Zoom workshops. If you've got this thing available to you, take advantage of this stuff, because if we don't watch our arts, they are going to disappear. All of the groups are going to crumble. So, even if it's mine, they've got, I heard Alexis Levine and somebody else in August. Make sure you sign up for those workshops. They are so important. And, the interaction, and like in my workshop, I like to hear from you. I like to know that people are out there breathing. I work in a club that's, our Gold Coast is getting very old. So I'm always like, okay, run around, see if we can put mirrors, make sure they're still breathing. I want to hear from people. So I have a weird sense
Another comment that was in the chat is from Clarice, and she said, yes, that she Zoomed with you first during her chemo year.
Yes.
What a fabulous teacher with heart.
And she is amazing on where she's gone from that point, because, we keep in contact. I just heard it from her the other day. So I'm glad you showed up. She's in Illinois right now. So this is such a wonderful opportunity. Look at the people. You've got somebody from North Carolina. I'm from Florida. Clarice is from Illinois. Look at the people you have coming to your thing. And I wish I would have known about you sooner. I didn't realize I could get in. So many of the groups don't offer their demos. You don't have to be a member to enjoy the demos.
Yeah.
No,
and
true.
You never know when you're going to find a workshop that you want to do. And hopefully you do join these groups, because that's what keeps the art world going.
Yeah.
So,
And Teresa, you are correct. I know so many art organizations right now that are struggling in California alone. So, and I do talk to organizations across the country as well. And we all seem to be like struggling with some of the same things right now, getting volunteers, getting workshops, demos, all kinds of things. So I appreciate what you said.
It's so important. I used to be on Broward Art Guild, which is here, their board. I was on 3 or 4 boards right in this area. Plus I was a past president of Florida Watercolor and the director of operations for Florida Watercolor. I've seen the growth, and I do know if we don't take care of, like you guys have a show, enter the shows, create your work. And until you put a mat on it and put it in a frame, it's like the black dress. It doesn't look good till you put the diamonds or the pearls on. Put it in that frame and share it with the world, because you have no idea what your work looks like until it's hanging with other artists.
Right.
But never compare yourself to anybody else. You are uniquely yours. I mean, you look at some of the outsider work, you look at some of the who was the lady at 70? She was a folk artist.
Grandma Moses?
Grandma Moses.
Yes.
I mean, she got out there and she's known.
Yeah.
And I love her work.
Yes. So you have to share your creativity. God gave you this ability, and everybody has it. I hate they're taking the arts out of the schools. But everybody has this. As a little kid, I wish I had where a little kid will hand you something. They don't care if you understand what it is. They're proud of what they do.
Yes.
And I look at Dean Mitchell. I don't know if you guys know him. He's a
Yep.
great,
Oh, yeah.
he was the speaker for Florida Watercolor. And what I love was, I think his grandma had a big hand in raising him, but he talked about how she would put his artwork down the hallway and invite the friends to come over and look at it when he was a little kid. And when
Yeah.
he decided to go to art school, it was his grandma that supported him in that. And, you know, it was his mom was like, well, honey, you know, Black people don't buy artwork. But yet he can get $50,000 for a watercolor.
Yeah, I can.
So, you know, you just have to believe in yourself, but realize a lot of it is about timing. I would love to be the next, you know who, but I don't worry about whether I do like this surface and it is archival, but it was not the reason why I chose it. I love working on it. But, you know, if I do end up in a museum, it's their job to figure out how to make it archival.
To
They're
save
having to
it.
fix Jackson Pollock's work right now because it's falling right off the canvases. So they'll figure it out.
Yep.
So do we have any other questions? Because I'm here.
Yeah, Teresa, this is Jean Warren. Can you tell us a little bit about what you're going to be doing in your workshop?
We're going to be working with the mark making. I'm going to be showing how you can tell, you know, talk about the passage of time. We're going to be talking about how by using certain words, you know what your painting is about, getting content into it. We're going to talk about the foundations that you can put things on. We're going to talk, like we'll start with an iconic format to begin with, one simple little subject, but we just kind of branch out. But I do like for you to come with some of your own images, simple shapes, you know, if you like to paint birds, do birds. If you like to do dogs, do dogs. Whatever you like to paint, because when you know your subject, all subjects is about knowing who you are, but I'll just try to help you figure out how to put this process into what you like to paint. I mean, this is a vase of flowers. Those are people up there. This is an abstract. This is flowers. And then, of course, the birds. So.
And Teresa, this is Susan. They can go to your website and see, you know, all your other images and
Yeah.
what they kind of were based on. So, you know, I mean, they're awesome. So you guys got to go see.
And the figurative work is really interesting, you know, if you bring in photos from fashion magazines or something like that.
All you need is a good shape. We're going to talk about shape. We're going to talk about placement of that shape on the paper, the different things that you tell, you know, by how you place it, you know, whether it's coming, it's going, you know, making conflict, having where it's uncomfortable, but your job as an artist is to entertain. And the longer you can keep them there, the better you've done your job. Because that's what it's about. It's just about, and I know everybody goes, you know, because I'll make them walk, you know, have them put the painting at the far end of the room and they go, well, of course it looks this far. It would look better if I was in the other room. Well, I can tell you, if you don't pull me from a distance, I'm not coming in to look.
Yeah.
So we'll talk about that. You know, it's just getting out there and getting out of your comfort zone and then bringing in what, you know, there's always something that you learn from everybody. Like out of this demo here, hopefully you're walking home with a few pieces already that you're going, oh, I hadn't thought about that.
Yeah.
And then it's just getting in there. You get to work. And let me tell you, because we will be looking at, I do critiques every day. We will be talking about, you know, what you've done, why it works, why it doesn't, that sort of thing, because you learn more from the other people in the class than you'll ever learn from me. I just give you a foundation to work upon it. So does that help you a little bit? I mean, we're going to be hitting a lot of stuff.
Jean, did that answer your question?
Yes, that sounds good. Excellent.
Yeah.
So
Thank
yeah,
you.
I mean, it's just, and like I said, Teresa's there. I forget who else from North Carolina. you know,
Mhm.
they're good people. And that's what I love. We get to meet so many people in these workshops. It's just, you know, when I joined Florida Watercolor, it was like I had a whole group of friends all over Florida. Now I'm getting them all over. It's like I got some in North Carolina, in Illinois, and hopefully I'll pick up some in California. So
Definitely.
Teresa, a couple people have asked in the chat how you make your stencils. I don't know if that's something you want to talk about right now or not.
I have to think where I've got it at. It's a stencil cutter. You can use Yupo, and it's iron. And it may be behind this plastic thing here. But it's just a little iron thing, and I'll draw where I want it at, and I cut it out, and I can do it on like medium weight Yupo. I can use, this one was over an old file, just a clear file, but I just cut it out. But now that they're not being so strict at Florida Watercolor, I've gone back to some of the ones that I can buy, but I'm always looking for something that is irregular, that, you know, we go from large to small. I use stamps, which I didn't on this one, but I will be talking about in our workshop, how you can use stamps with this to remove. So I'm a lot about putting down, taking away, putting down, putting layers on top of, that sort of thing. So, but I will, if you take the workshop, or I could send over, I'm trying to think. I'm like an artist. I have a whole wall on that side. We took over my living room. When I got my two kids, I had to bring my studio downstairs, and I took over my living room. I've got a whole wall of art supplies over there, art supplies here, books here. And I think my stencil cutter is behind this thing I set up to.
Okay. Don't worry
But
about
I'll
it.
bring it out, and I'll try to send Vicky or Susan
Yeah.
the picture of it so that you can see what it is.
That's
But
great.
and
Okay.
like I said, there's Stencil Girl out there. Although every time I go into Stencil Girl, I get overwhelmed by how, I mean, I got so many things, and I end up not buying anything because it's too,
There's a lot. And
Oh.
the other one is Joggles. They have a ton.
there's just something about us. I mean, I can't tell you how many stencils I have over on that side, you know, so it's like that. But I will get a picture of it and send it to you guys so that they can put it out. I don't know if they have a newsletter or what they have, or,
We do.
oh, okay.
Yeah.
So any other questions? Because these are all great questions. So
No, but I hope everybody will if you haven't signed up for the workshop yet, I hope you really consider signing up. I think it'll be a great time, and we'll learn a lot.
Yes.
Yeah.
the big
I
thing,
second the motion.
and the big thing is, I will show you stuff, but I don't believe, I'll talk to you the whole time you're working, but I'm not a big one on taking up all your time to paint and show you things, because I'll give you enough to get you going. But I believe that this is a time, because I want you to be able to show me what you've accomplished so I can tell whether you're on the right track or what's going on. But I want you to have the painting time with me where I can respond to what you're doing. So, you know, it is about you painting and not sitting and watching me paint for X amount of time. So
Yeah.
if that helps you, because I know I've been in workshops and, oh, they go on forever and ever and ever. I don't like that type of, I've run both sides of workshops. So I
Yeah.
have certain likes and dislikes. I send you your notes. You'll get your notes ahead of time that you can add to. But I just found that I was not a good note taker. So I will be sending them PDFs so that you have the notes. So hopefully you'll join us. And
Yes.
So
if
I do
not-
have a question about the workshop.
Okay.
So for what period of time after the workshop will the recording be available?
We will have the recording available for 90 days.
Thanks.
You can't beat that. I mean,
So sign up, Kathy, sign up.
Can you hear me?
Yes.
I typically, I looked at the painting as you were completing it, and in the upper right, I said to myself, boy, that looks like a pumpkin or a basketball. And then I realized that in the past, I would have filled in to make it look more like either a pumpkin or a basketball, but I would be sending too much information out there, and you get bored right away where you suggest things and pull people into it. I mean, that's obvious, but it made me think about that, and I never really have. So
Yeah.
I think that's what I really got out of this.
Well, that's it. We always give way, way, way too much information. We give them enough to entertain them. It's all about putting down things and hiding your tracks. And it took me a long time to get to this. I mean, I'm telling you, and I still have to fight it. I mean, there are times that I end up at 120 finished, and then I got to back out 20% of the painting.
Mm.
So, but
Hmm.
I've learned to stop sooner and to be aware of what's happening. We never listen to our paintings. And that's why I am not, are you a plan painter? Do you do a value study when you start and stuff like that? Or you have an idea where you're going?
Not a little bit.
Yeah.
When
Go ahead.
when I first started out, I painted when I was a kid, and then as an adult, I started, and my instructor said I paint like an engineer.
Yeah.
So I give too much information, and I
Well-
overdo everything.
An engineer, the good thing is you can deconstruct, because a lot of this is taking away at the same time. So as an engineer, you can look and say, how much can I take away and still have it reach? And that's how you have to ask.
Right.
Do I have to tell the whole story, or how little? I mean, I teach weekly, and we do a thing where you can do a drawing and then you got to erase as many lines as you can and still have it read.
Yeah.
Wow.
So, these little things are the things that make a difference. And those of you that are plein air painters, I was a plein air painter. I don't know if you noticed my little rag here. I can't stand when people are out plein air painting and they leave behind their paper towels or whatever. This is my way of controlling the trash.
Garbage.
Yeah.
So,
Thank you.
That's smart. That's smart.
because otherwise you leave behind too much stuff. So,
Yeah,
Yeah.
because I heard you had a plein air group.
we
Mhm.
do. And they're pretty conscientious too. So
Yeah. We really do have to, because there's a lot of places that they don't like you coming in because of that. But
yeah. In fact, some of them don't even want oil painters out there.
yeah.
Yeah.
So, but the big thing is get out there, paint as much as you can. Don't tell the whole story. Leave them wanting. And that, because you're male, you don't know this. Women have used that for years. We give you enough information that we are intriguing, but you spend the rest of life trying to figure out how we operate. So like I said, painting is just about relationships.
I
I
love
love
it.
that, Teresa.
So I have lots of words of wisdom. I worked with balding men. I was a hairdresser, and I worked with balding men for 25 years. So I know how all of this works.
Oh
So
my goodness. That's
That's
funny.
great. I love
So-
the piece that you did today for the demo, Teresa. It's beautiful.
and it painted itself. I mean, I'm sitting here coming in here, I'm always a little bit intimidated. So
Sure.
because I don't know how it's going to turn out. But the one thing that I figured out a long time ago is if you see a painting heading south, and I've got to try to make it work, it lets you know that I'm not any different than you. I just have
Yeah.
a few more. I am big on BS.
Yeah.
And if it comes down to I'm going to make you believe it is what it works out to. So,
Yeah.
but like I said, if you want to take the workshop, it's great. I would love to have you there. If you can't, look at their other workshops. There's always somebody or something out there for you, and you get something. I just love I'm a social person, in case you didn't figure that out. I like being around people. I love sharing what I know. And that's what I find with artists is they are so giving. So,
We really appreciate that. So I think we'll let you go at this point unless anybody else has a question or comment. And
Love the work.
yep,
Yeah. And looking forward to the workshop.
oh,
Yeah,
good.
very
And,
much.
and those
Well,
past students, thanks for showing up. It's always good because I think both of you guys, I know Clarice did you both did the beauty of the mark. So hopefully this reinstated everything that I taught you before.
Love it.
So,
All right.
All right. Thank you, Teresa. Thanks, everybody, for coming.
We'll see
All
you in a
right.
couple weeks.
Thank
Thanks.
you.
all righty.
Take
Bye-bye.
care. Bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.